Welcome to Live with the Guy. I got the beautiful Nat producing off camera. She'll be reading articles and doing some camera switching for me.
Hello.
If you are a Spanish speaker, she has a night show on our other channel, Nat and the Guy Espanol. That's at 8 p.m. Mexico City time or Central time if you're in the United States. And then we'll be right back here at 9:15 with our primary show, Nat and the Guy Live. That's where we do culture and politics. Right now, we're going to get into mainly politics. I got a little bit of a different layout today. We're going to go regionally. The four main regions I'm going to cover today are going to be the Middle East, South Africa, U.S., and Canada. There was a lot of geopolitical news coming out of all four regions. The through thread, as in most through threads these days, is Trump. So there's a lot of stories going through Trump and those regions, but also there's a lot of stories coming out of those regions that don't involve Trump. So let's go into the Middle East first, I think. Trump arrives in Saudi Arabia to kick off a high-stakes Middle East trip. It was Trump, Marco Rubio, Elon Musk, and J.D. Vance. They all showed up there. He's bringing the heavy hitters of the heavy hitters of his administration to the Middle East. So I was expecting big things. He's only been over there a few hours and major announcements have been made. As I got back from my rehabilitation training today for my back, there was even more news. So I was trying to add articles at the last minute. Why don't we read the first article you got here, and then we'll get a little bit more in depth.
So because this is the most current headline, it's the only one I can find. But Trump says he will end Syria sanctions during Saudi visit marked by big money deals. Okay,
why don't we go... this section's a little bit confused because I'm just adding in information as I got home. Because all this stuff is breaking. They haven't even had a chance to write these articles yet. I'm coming in pretty cold with the news. But X... all this stuff was airing live on X. So why don't we start with the meeting between President Trump and Crown Saudi Prince, and then I'll talk about the deal they signed. This is a major deal. So as far as Trump's tariffs going and his ability to negotiate major deals, this is just another feather in his cap, and it all seems to be coming together now. People that were doubting Trump before are having trouble doubting him now. Even CNN yesterday, after the China 90-day pause on the tariffs and they're coming close to a deal, was admitting Trump's tariffs may be working. Okay, do you have the clip from X? Yes, no, maybe. No, that's not the one, but I'll talk about it a little bit.
The plane?
No, that's not it either. That's fine.
Because they're all got mixed up.
Okay. Trump met with Saudi Crown Prince and signed an economic agreement which will result in a $600 billion in Saudi investment into the United States. This is really across most major sectors. There was a ton of military spending. There is expected to be another $400 billion potentially signed in the next few days to go on top of that, which would be the equivalent of $1 trillion. So if that is the case, that's just going to be an economic boom for the United States. Trump's tariffs are really hitting on every level because a $600 billion investment by Saudi, that's going to build a lot of manufacturing and a lot of jobs within the United States. Plus, he's got all these tariff deals coming in from individual countries, which are opening up markets to the U.S. and making it very enticing for manufacturers to come back to the U.S. so they can have preferential treatment to these emerging markets such as Saudi Arabia, such as China, such as the UK, Canada, and Mexico. Those deals should be coming shortly. So it's going to be very interesting. We're going to go a little bit more into Canada later, and they really need to sign a deal because their economy is on the verge of collapse. Let's go into the second part where I know we did have a clip. It's the one where Trump has the blue background and he's going to give a speech. This must have been, I'll set it up before you play it. This must have been part of the investment deal as well. And this was really good news for, I would say, populist conservatism that really is anti-war. If you know the conservative movement in the United States, there's two major factions. the new populist right, which is MAGA, and the old rhino right, which is Republicans in name only. The rhinos are really very pro-war. This would be the equivalent to like when George Bush, Dick Cheney were in office, things like this. The populist MAGA right is extremely anti-war, and they're not afraid to speak out and try to steer Trump in the right direction. Trump has to negotiate peace deals, so he has to show some strength, which sometimes makes him look like he's veering towards war. But to this point, he never really has. So he does show allegiance to the populist MAGA right, which is great. This particular announcement today that he literally just gave, Trump announces he will be removing U.S. sanctions on Syria. He said, I will be ordering cessation of sanctions against Syria in order to give them a chance at greatness. And that country really needs a chance at greatness. And what is happening right now? Just a few days ago, Trump at least signaled he was turning his back on Israel in a lot of different ways, and that Israel was attempting to propagate a war with Iran, and Trump didn't want that. Whether that's the actual case or he's just kind of projecting to that to the public, I don't know. But this kind of does go in conjunction with dropping the sanctions on Syria and now bringing Saudi Arabia into the deal. If you remember, Trump had the 7 Middle Eastern peace accords with Israel and other Arab countries, where these really tied that region together economically to create a greater peace in the region. And I think that's what he's doing again. Saudi Arabia is the key component to all economic deals done in that region, and they are really the driving investment force. So the fact that he's dropping sanctions on Syria, getting this big investment deal with Saudi Arabia, I'm sure they've talked about future plans of the region, and now it seems like he's giving Israel the cold shoulder. I'm sure he'll rehash those allegiances with Israel because he has always had good allegiances with Israel, but he wants to signal to Israel that he's going to be bringing peace to the Middle East like he did the first time. Let's play this clip now.
Bring the cessation of sanctions against Syria in order to give them a chance at greatness.
Turning up on my headphones. Good. That was a Saudi crown prince right there that was clapping. Right there. He runs Saudi Arabia. And he was the first one to stand up, which is signaling this was part of the big negotiations they had. And this is re-strengthening relations between Saudi Arabia and the United States, which is critically important. Okay, you can pause that. Now, Saudi has always had a really good relationship with Trump and the United States. That was the emergence of the petrodollar and things like that. The petrodollar seems to be dissolving, but the relationship seems to be strengthening. Saudi Arabia is a key factor in the Middle East because they are on good relations with Russia and the U.S., so they can kind of be a go-between. And it's strange to think, but Saudi Arabia could be the key component to a lot of peace agreements between the U.S. and Russia in Ukraine, between the U.S. And Israel and Palestine to stop that war as well. So also Iranian tensions have been escalating. So a key factor within that region is Saudi Arabia and their economic investment and their broad-ranging strategy when they combine with the United States and Israel. Do you have any thoughts on this? I know this is really geopolitical heavy and you like more pop culture, but...
Yeah, I mean, I'm not super trusting of the Middle East in general, so
yeah,
my opinion probably doesn't count a lot right now.
Well, a lot of people, that brings up a kind of a good point. A lot of people don't know the alliances in the Middle East, so maybe I'll just review it a little bit before we kind of move on to the next story, which is another Middle Eastern story. But Saudi Arabia has always been really aligned with the U.S. They're starting to open up trade relations with Russia a lot more, but it's really a good economic relationship for the U.S. Saudi Arabia will always put Saudi Arabia first, but because of the petrodollar and the good long-term history of trade between Saudi Arabia and the U.S., it's one of the big allies in the region. Obviously, Iran is not a U.S. ally. That's why Saudi Arabia is a pivotal component. They're able to talk to Iran within that region for the U.S. Other big players within that region are going to be, I guess, India, but India is kind of almost in their own sphere of influence. So let's go into the next story, and this involves Trump in the Middle East as well, but it's a different country. Qatar. Qatar is another major ally of the U.S. I almost forgot them. They're a smaller country, but that's where the U.S. military foothold is in the region. They recently gave not Donald Trump a plane, but the U.S. government a plane, and Trump actually accepted it. A lot of people think this is showing favoritism or corruption. I actually have a different take on it, and let's play the clip we have from Trump.
I think Qatar, who we've helped them a lot over the years in terms of security and safety. I think they, and very, very nicely, and I have a lot of respect for the leadership and for the leader, Qatar. And I think they knew about it because they buy Boeings. They buy a lot of Boeings. And they knew about it, and they said, we would like to do something, and if we can get a 747 as a contribution to our Defense Department to use during a couple of years while they're building the other ones, I think that was a very nice gesture. Now, I could be a stupid person and say, oh, no, we don't want a free plane. We give free things out. We'll take one, too. And it helps us out. Because, again, we're talking about we have 40-year-old aircraft. The money we spend, the maintenance we spend on those planes to keep them tippy-top is astronomical. You wouldn't even believe it. So I think it's a great gesture from Qatar. I appreciate it very much. I would never be one to turn down that kind of an offer. I mean, I could be a stupid person and say, no, we don't want a free, very expensive airplane. But I thought it was a great gesture. And I think it was a gesture because of the fact that we have helped and continue to, we will continue to, all of those countries, Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Qatar, and others, we keep them safe. If it wasn't for us, they probably wouldn't exist right now. And I think this was just a gesture of good faith. And I don't get it. Someday it'll be like Ronald Reagan. They decommission them. You know, they get to a certain age, they decommission them. It'll go to my library. They're talking about going to my library in years out. But I thought it was a great gesture.
Okay, and that's pretty good. Now, I'll get your opinion on this before my opinion, because my opinion actually changed on this after I saw Trump's speech. I thought this could be viewed as corruption, but after reanalyzing, I actually have a different opinion. But what is your opinion on this plane? It's been in the news the last couple of days.
Well, a lot of people are worried about the security issue. So, like, could they be using it to spy? Are there microphones or things hidden within it?
Well, that's the first thing I thought as well. But the CIA and the FBI are going to go through that thing and disassemble it and then reassemble it to make sure there are no microphones. They're going to do complete sweeps. They also got to make sure there's no boom booms on the plane. So at first that's what I was thinking, but I was like, yeah, no, there's no way. Even if they take it, even if it cost them $500,000 to completely disassemble the plane and reassemble it, it's still quite the gift.
But also the GPS tracking and everything. And also, doesn't it make the U.S. look worse, saying that they don't have enough money to get a plane in the first place?
Well, they do have planes, this and that, but this is kind of the thing that I was thinking about. The U.S. hands out a lot of economic aid. USAID was handing out hundreds of billions of dollars to almost every country around the world. They often hand out free military supplies to countries like Ukraine, Israel, things like this. So they're constantly giving out gifts that they expect nothing in return. Sometimes they're in the form of loans, so they do expect something in return. But to think the U.S. would never take something from another country is a little bit ridiculous because they're constantly handing things out to other countries. And I really don't think Qatar would put a boom boom or microphones on the plane because they kind of know they're going to sweep this plane. And if that is found in the plane, that will absolutely kill relations between Qatar and the United States.
And also, like the headline says here from the AP, Trump's plan to accept free Air Force One replacement from Qatar raises ethical and security worries.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was going into, where it's never an ethical or security worry when Ukraine's taking free stuff, or when the EU's taking free stuff, or the UK's taking free stuff. Even Canada is taking all kinds of things, whether it's military aircraft, whether it's civilian investment, whether it's economic investment. And if it's in the form of a loan, then that's different. But very often, the U.S. is giving these things out with nothing expected in return. But when the U.S. takes something, and it's not Trump taking it personally, he's taking it on behalf of the government. So it'll be utilized by the government itself, and it's not a military aircraft. It's used for general travel. So, okay, let's go into, I did have a clip, and because we were in the Middle East section, I thought I would play it. This is a Muslim man starts praying on a flight, blocking the aisles. When crew members ask him to go back to his seat, he punches them in the face. Now, he didn't pray in the aisle. He went right up into where you have access to the door, potentially the cockpit. This seems like
the gangway and the galley.
Yeah, the gangway and the galley.
Well, the gangway is where they take off. So yeah, the galley.
This seems like this should be a secure location in the plane. To have a Middle Eastern man praying here, this is not where you would want it. For them to ask for him to go back to his seat and miss his prayer, I completely understand it. It can be a security risk. His reaction was a little bit crazy. Let's watch this video and let's risk the censorship of YouTube.
Tu nous passes le médecin sinon aussi.
How's it feel, Pixel? And it looks like these staff don't know what to do. The gentleman should have asked where was an appropriate place to pray, and they would have let him know. But the one gentleman's blocking, literally looks like the cockpit. The other guy's blocking the exit door, so this guy doesn't open it up in midair. They're on the phone, probably with the captain, asking what they should do. And this is just a really uncomfortable situation. If you are a Muslim and you do want to play on a plane, maybe ask the crew where's an appropriate place. Okay, let's continue.
D'accord, bon, c'est parti. Alors attendez. Allez, on va aller.
Dis-moi, qu'est-ce que j'ai fait? Qu'est-ce que j'ai fait? Mais vous êtes malade là, vous prenez quelqu'un. Vous faites quoi là? Vous faites quoi là? Allah Akbar!
Non, il n'y a pas là. Non, il n'y a pas là.
Yeah, good for these security officers.
Where is it? France?
I wasn't sure where it was at. Like in the morning.
French, I think.
Oh, they're really giving it to him. Okay, and I gather a lot of this news really cold right in the morning, so you really get my raw opinion, and I don't always know the exact country where some of the articles are coming from. By the night show, I have everything kind of worked out with news stories, but he should have known he was going to get arrested when that plane landed, number one, for hitting that gentleman, and number two, they asked him to get up and leave the plane. You can see that before they started like trying to drag him out of there. And he started yelling Allah Akbar, really resisting the actual security officers and things like that. They're lucky this thing didn't escalate in midair. And also, I didn't know who that gentleman was that came up behind it. It almost looked like that could be one of his friends because it didn't necessarily look like a steward.
I think it looked like a guy that wanted to go to the bathroom.
Maybe, but there's not a bathroom in the front galley of the plane. Usually it's in the middle, right
It
after
depends
first
on-
class, and it's in the very back.
It depends on the design of the plane, but,
Yeah, but
that
usually
seemed to
not.
be towards the back of the plane.
Okay. Do you have anything to say? That's more your kind of thing.
Why is that my kind of thing?
It's pop culture. It's not.
How is that
it's
pop
not-
culture?
Well, it's not really politics.
Well, I mean, when you're on a plane and you're being given instructions by crew, you're supposed to follow them for your own safety and the safety of others. Of course, there's a lot of people that don't really care about that,
Yeah.
especially these kinds.
Okay, let's go into South Africa, and there's been a lot of news coming out about South Africa lately. I'll try to give a little bit of back politics of South Africa and just a general feel of the region right now, because they are in chaos. There have been a ton of riots. If you remember, I'm guessing it was about a year ago, there was major upheaval, and they were burning down the infrastructures, power plants, malls, things like this. The streets were completely filled with riots because of the political upheaval within that country. It's kind of simmered down to a point, but for the past decade now, there's been the situation with the farmers in the region. These are specifically the white farmers. They passed legislation and laws. They can take their land and give them no compensation. And it seems like they're not just taking their land and giving them no compensation, but they're taking their lives along with it. I'm about to show a video of a bunch of crosses in South Africa that literally line the roads of all the dead South African farmers and their family members when they came to take their land. They not only took their land, they took a lot more. I'm going to have a few other clips about people talking about this, and then we'll get my general thoughts about this after, though.
Okay. This one has copyrighted sound, so I can't.
Okay, we'll
play
turn
it,
off
but
the sound for this particular one then.
You do have sound.
I have sound, okay. So this is a massive amount of people that have passed away because of what's going on here. And this is quite the sight. They're going over in helicopter. You can hear the helicopter. I know you don't have sound, but I do.
Is there a music track or no?
No.
Oh, because there was one that did have a music track. It was just the sound.
Okay, we've put the sound on for you guys, but you can see these crosses go as far as the eye can see. And now there's white communities popping up that are primarily white-only communities for their own safety within the region, and they're completely armed and separate and pretty far away from the industrial centers because they are fearing for their lives. And man, when I first watched this, I was like, man, this kind of goes on forever, it almost seems like. But here's the end right here. Okay, and we can stop that. What do you think about that video?
Well, I think maybe a lot of people don't even know what's going on, how the conflict started, what's happening.
Yeah, so maybe let's talk about it just a little bit. They're taking well, I kind of did just explain it though.
Okay.
They're passing legislation to take their land, but when
But
they're
why?
coming to confiscate their land, because there was a new government that came into power that is like kind of a blacks first, I would say, or black Africans first. So there's a lot of racial tension happening within South Africa. So they're wanting to give the farmland to black Africans that necessarily don't even know how to farm. They just want it to be controlled by one race. This has happened in other countries in Africa. And when stuff like this happens and you have good farmers within the regions that have done this for generations, from father to son and grandfather to father to son, they know what they're doing on that farmland. They know how to farm it. They know how to get to yield the crops. When you give it to somebody that doesn't know how to farm, they can't yield proper crops, and then the country starts to starve, and then it becomes dependent on external food imports. And Africa just doesn't have any money, especially with USAID getting cut off. I don't know how they're going to manufacture enough food without having these farmers farm for them, because the farmers that are taking over these farms don't necessarily know how to farm.
And this came after apartheid, right?
And this came
So
after
it was
apartheid.
basically trying to answer to what had happened during apartheid by doing the exact same thing the other way.
Yeah, and apartheid has been, this is like old history at this point. This is well over decades, multiple decades ago. So
Yeah, 30-ish.
why don't we play, this is an African politician and he's got quite a lot of power within the country. And this settlement and his sentiments here are actually echoed by dozens and dozens, if not hundreds of other African politicians that are all on video, and you can see what they're saying in their own words. We're going to risk demonetization here for this, so let's go for it.
We're not monetized on this channel, so it's
Okay.
copyright.
Well, copyright.
Must never be scared to kill. A revolution demands that at some point there must be killing, because the killing is part of a revolutionary act.
And they're
I
clapping
don't
and
know
cheering
what's
for
going
this
to happen
guy.
in the future. I'm saying to you, we have not called for the killing of white people, at least for now. I can't guarantee the future.
Yeah, but I mean, you'd understand somebody watching that, especially as it gets shared on Twitter, they freak out. It sounds like a genocidal call.
Cry babies. Cry babies.
I'm not calling for the slaughter of white people, at least for now.
I can't give a guarantee of the future, especially when things are going the way they are.
Subtext.
Especially if things are going the way they are, there will be a revolution in this country, I can tell you now.
We are not calling for the slaughter of
And
white
pause it.
people, at least.
And we're going to go back to it in just a moment. But the fact that he's speaking so brazenly to international press, and he's done it again and again, and it's going to go on for another minute, and you're going to see. And when I was gathering this video, there was just countless politicians that are all echoing the same thing. When this gentleman and other politicians within South Africa talk about killing white people and taking their farmland and other things, the crowds get up and cheer for them, which is crazy. And I'm not just talking about civilian crowds. I'm talking about when they're talking in front of their version of their Congress, all the parties are getting up and just cheering. Okay, let's continue to play the clip now.
Now, that means at some future date, we may call for the slaughter of white people. Is that correct?
Let's deal with that at that future date. I don't know what's going to happen.
So you're saying you are not ruling out that in the future you may very well call for the slaughter of white people.
It may not be me.
Could it be you?
It could be me, yes, but it may not be me.
Yes, so it could be you. You could, at some future date, call for the slaughter of white people.
Shoot to kill. Gamaza. Kill the poor. The farmer. Kill the poor. The farmer. Brr, pa.
So they're literally talking about get rid of the farmer by any means necessary here at this stadium. This must be at least, I would say 40, 50,000 people, and they're dancing and cheering for it. This is a dangerous situation when they start dividing amongst ethnic lines, especially with the history in South Africa. Now, there was no slavery in South Africa. A lot of people actually don't know the history. So a lot of people think there was slavery, and that's why there is this animosity.
Well, ages and ages and ages ago, there was between tribes. There were people
Between
that
tribes,
were being
between black
sent
and black tribes, not
as slaves.
not between whites and blacks.
Mm-hmm.
The whites never enslaved the blacks in South Africa, and this is something that is propagated online that is just completely untrue. So, what else was I going to say here? Did we have any more clips on South Africa? I know I had quite
a few, yes.
Oh, okay. If you do want more information on this, there was a good documentary made a few years ago by Lauren Southern. She's a Canadian journalist. I often bring up her different documentaries because I report a lot about Canada and stuff like this. But she took a documentary team and went on the ground as this story was emerging. The documentary is called Farmlands. And this has been going on for well over a decade now. And all those crosses you've seen are not them. They'll potentially call for violence. They are calling for violence now, and it is happening. This is why Donald Trump has offered refugee status to these farmers. Now, it's not a mass migration from South Africa to America. At this point, it was 50 white farmers that were really in the worst situations of everybody that applied, and they're coming over legally. There are still refugees being allowed into the United States, although on a limited basis, from many countries around the world, not just South Africa. So the left is kind of going crazy because they're trying to portray it as white people are giving preferential treatment for refugee immigration status, and that's just not the case. Also, Elon Musk has really brought this to the attention of the administration. That's why Donald Trump has really made this a focus of his administration. And we'll go into a clip after Farmlands about Donald Trump talking about this, but he's supposed to meet with some South African delegates and politicians here shortly. It's going to be really interesting. Also, the G7, I believe, is supposed to meet in South Africa. I don't know if that's going to happen anymore, if this situation is still going on the ground. Donald Trump also imposed a extremely heavy tariff on them because of this situation, telling them they need to fix this situation if they want the tariff removed. Okay, let's go into the Farmlands trailer if we can.
And
we'll play parts of it, pause it, talk about it.
I'm in South Africa to find truth. In a country where farming is one of the most dangerous jobs on earth.
The farm murders are brutal.
Okay, you can pause it for a second. And again, this documentary is a few years old, and this has been going on for a long time. The mainstream media has not reported on this. Independent media has, but it's also very hard to report on the situation, especially when it was at its peak. This was around the same time there was the mass grave hoax in Canada, and the Me Too movement was really strong. So censorship online about this story was massive through the Biden administration. So independent media would talk about it here or there, but they couldn't talk openly about this. So a lot of people don't even know this has been going on for as long as it has in South Africa.
Because this was from 2018 and all of that was actually during Trump's administration, but the independent media.
2018?
Yeah, but the independent media were and the stories were censored during Trump's term as well because of the actual media not wanting to report on it or showcase it.
Yeah. Okay, let's continue. Well, one more sec. The media industrial complex during Trump's first administration had control over what was coming out, and they had control over censorship. This is why he's gone so hard at not only the mainstream media, but independent media and YouTube and Google and things like this. He's trying to get rid of the censorship so we can talk about stories like this. Okay, let's continue.
Bullet went in here, came out here.
Where cities are crumbling.
The visible deterioration of South Africa.
Where the men prepare for civil war.
We need to prepare for whatever is coming.
A hydroponic system. A few thousand liters of diesel there.
And the wives
fear. Okay, let's
fear.
pause it again just so we don't get hit with the copyright here. But what I was going to say is we're going to have a clip in a little bit about this liberal propaganda that's coming out right now saying this isn't happening. They're actually having South Africans saying this isn't how the country is. Americans think they're going to get middle-class white refugees. That's not what's happening. They're not expecting middle-class white refugees. They're expecting rednecks and farmers, people that might not be the most educated conventionally, but they are very educated in common sense and have seen the worst of what happens. They are actually very skilled people as well. They know how to run farms inside and out. These are the exact kind of people that the United States needs. Okay, let's continue.
For their lives.
You're not safe. You're never safe.
You'll probably come and kill us.
Where leaders and criminals stand hand in hand.
We just showed a clip of that.
It's ours. Our people are at war in farms now.
It's without compensation.
A nation at boiling point.
But there is a genocide coming in South Africa.
Okay, So this is firsthand accounts. This is video footage. This is a document she has in here. This is talking to politicians, showing what politicians have said, just like we have said. The fact that the liberal media is now trying to deny that this is happening in South Africa when it's been happening for well over a decade, and it has been reported primarily in documentary form because they had to distribute it independently. Okay, let's finish it off here.
5 years, a civil war will begin in South Africa.
And I'm here to tell you why.
Okay, and we can stop that. And if you haven't seen Farmlands, highly recommend it. You can really get an in-depth view from on the ground. Now, that's almost 5, 6, 7 years ago that documentary was going on, and it's only escalated since there. There has been a lot more reporting on it, so I'm surprised when I'm looking online and investigating the story today that so many people are in denial, saying this isn't happening, this is Trump's propaganda, because this is the first time they're hearing about it. But I've been hearing about this for well over a decade. There's certain fringe stories that I continuously report on, especially on our night show. This happened to be one of them. Some of the other fringe stories or countries and regions I focus on is really Ireland. Ireland is primed for a revolution within the EU, and that's why I constantly talk about what's going on in Ireland, especially right now with Conor McGregor being boxed out from running for president or even mayor of Ireland, and the crazy globalist not only propaganda, but legislation they're forcing on the Irish people when the Irish people are completely rejecting it and no longer want it. And there's mass protest in the streets. Okay, we do have another clip. Let's play the one let's play this one that you have primed and ready to go.
Let me get the sound for them.
The South African president says the people arriving in the U.S. today do not fit the definition of refugees, and that what Trump has been told about their persecution is false.
And that's the mainstream media lies. They won't go in depth into the story. They just want to say, this is lies, this is false. Trump just doesn't know what he's talking about. He's being misinformed. It's Elon Musk that's from that region. He's the one that's misinforming them. But there's just a mountain of evidence. This is an issue that they will lose, because the evidence is already gathered up from the past decade, and independent journalists are ready to go with this story. This is some more liberal propaganda. Now, this is more independent, and there is a ton of people and liberals making these little independent videos talking about South Africa and how this isn't happening, or if it is happening, these aren't the kind of people we want in the United States. Okay, let's play this.
This video is for the white Afrikaners who are coming to the United States. I think you've already landed here. And I know that some of the folks who met you at the airport told you, welcome, we're so glad you're here. Most of us aren't glad you're here, okay? We don't want you here. We never wanted you here.
First of all, I'm glad they're there, and a lot of other Americans are glad they're there. They know how to functionally operate farmland, and these are going to be productive members of society. And to think that this is really people on the left want to pick and choose what immigrants they want. The right is happy to have any immigrants that come that are legal. Now, you say there's a lot of backlash with ICE and things going on right now in the United States. That's for illegal immigrants. People that are generally against illegal immigration are against illegal immigration, not legal. The United States welcomes more people than any other country in the world for the past decades and decades and decades. I was looking at the statistics, and every year they welcome the most legal and illegal. Now, the fact that they're rejecting illegal immigration for different reasons, such as security or voter integrity and things like that, they're still letting the most amount of legal immigrants into the country. And they don't mind having Mexican immigrants and South American immigrants and things like that. I would say this: the United States has been very lucky on their type of immigrants that do come. They've been primarily from Mexico, and so they have a very similar moral foundation of Christianity and Catholicism and things like this. So they integrate very, very well, and they always have into the U.S. population. Europe is in a different situation. Their immigrants do not immigrate properly because they're from Muslim countries. They have a different set of moral values. Okay, let's continue.
And furthermore, I noticed they're going to settle you in Idaho, Ohio, and North Carolina. I will tell you they're not our finest states, so they're a good fit for you. I understand that many of you are farmers, and I've seen a lot of people say, oh, that's great, we need more farmers. Sorry to say we don't. We actually need farm workers because we've deported most of them. So if you can...
Now, this is borderline racism what this girl's saying. We don't want immigrants that are going to own farms. We want them working our farms. So basically, it's the same argument liberals constantly give about we want immigrants for maids scrubbing our toilets, which is crazy. A lot of Mexicans that come into the United States start as farmhands, and then they raise up intergenerationally and are able to save enough money to open their own small independent farms and things like this. They're very knowledgeable on farm work in the United States. And so are these South Africans. I wouldn't put a division between Mexican immigrants and South African immigrants. They're both welcome if they come in legally. And again, South African immigrants aren't coming in mass right now. It's been 50 of them that have been allowed. 50 is nothing. There's still hundreds coming across the border on a monthly basis. So, which is better than 14,000 a day, which used to come in under the Biden administration.
And it was from all over the world. It was Chinese people flying in, coming in from Canada, coming down from the Darien Gap, etc.
What would you call these glasses?
Put your picking hat
Skin
on
color?
and think about, picking produce. That's largely probably what you're going to be doing here, because I hear you don't have a lot of skills. I would also say that you're not going to have to hold just one job, but probably 2 or 3 to make up for your quality of life that you had back in South Africa. There will be no servants working for $2 a day. There's none of that.
These aren't rich white people from South Africa. These are people that worked at their own farms. They know how to work hard. They are going to have one job, and it's going to be farming, and they're not going to need 2 or 3 jobs, because that one job, they work it like it's 4 or 5 jobs. They work from sunrise to sunset. These aren't people that had African house servants and things like this. Now, a lot of richer people in Africa do have house servants. The farmers aren't part of that elite class. They typically live rurally. They have guns they have to protect themselves with and things like this. Okay, let's continue.
So you're the servant who's working for $2 a day. So enjoy that. You're going to have to pay for your health care. And ordinarily, because you're a refugee who's being discriminated against, you would go on Medicaid. But guess what? The Republicans just cut Medicaid. So I don't think you're going to have that option for health care. So maybe you'll do without. I don't know. And honestly, I don't care. I did notice-
she's just talking so much crap on the United States. If she hates it so much, why doesn't she leave?
She can go to South Africa and try to do what they were doing.
Yeah, I mean, this is absolutely insane. This woman is talking like this. And this is half of America right now.
Yeah, that's the liberal viewpoint that actually doesn't know anything about the world, but they talk with such confidence that when they actually go to see the world, they realize the error of their ways, but most of them don't want to leave the U.S. because it's so comfortable for them.
I mean, I'm originally from Canada, and I'll talk shit on Canada all day because I left because of the government and their crazy progressive policies. They're absolutely destroying that country. I shine a light on that every day, not only on this show, but our night show. But I left the country because I disagreed, and they crossed every red line. This girl is having the government step in over every one of her red lines, that she doesn't have enough of a spine to actually stand up and say no more, and actually leave the country.
Because they don't actually believe it.
No.
They know they're wrong, but it's just fun to
cosplay as I don't even know what you call this.
Stupid.
Non-binary skin color glasses here. Okay, let's keep playing
the
it.
Episcopalian Church had a program with the government where they would, they would resettle and help, refugees resettle. They find you all to be so onerous, they terminated the partnership with the government, and they said, yeah, we won't be resettling those folks. Other things that you need to know about. While we are 58% white here in the United States, that's not going to last much longer. Within the next couple of years, we're going to be the minority, which will be fun for you because that's what you're used to. Interestingly enough, we have a ton of Latinos. We're the second largest Spanish-speaking country in the world.
Okay. Pause again. And I don't think a lot of people like, okay, yeah, whites might be the minority one day. But here's the thing. They're going to start, right now they're trying to attack the white population. They're trying to segment everybody into these groups. But once these liberals have the whites as the minority, they're going to start attacking Christians because Christianity does not have color lines and things like this. So today it's whites, tomorrow it's Christians. They want to segment everybody into these identity politics and have intersectionality and things like this. This is just crazy woke propaganda this lady's talking about. Do you have anything to say here before we finish her up?
Well, I just wanted to double check if the U.S. was the second largest Spanish-speaking country in the world. It is. Then it's Colombia, Spain, Mexico's number one. I thought Spain was going to be higher up, but...
Okay, well, let's continue with this.
Yeah.
So for you, if you could stop speaking that dirty, guttural, whatever it is, German, French, Dutch thing that you speak, that Afrikaans, nobody wants to hear that shit. So you can speak English or you can speak Spanish. Which is
Whoa. Pause this. This is clearly a progressive liberal that would never say this to any other race or creed of person. She would not tell a Mexican coming from Mexico, stop speaking the devil's tongue, like she's telling this African to stop doing.
Yeah. As a Mexican, I would tell Mexicans, learn English because your life will be much easier, but you're not allowed to.
This girl is crazy. She is racist just against this one group, and she's saying things to this one group she would never say to other things. These are African Americans. She should be showing them respect. And the richest man in the world right now is an African American. So maybe she should do her research. Okay, let's continue to play this.
Language here. In terms of other things that you need to know about, the black people in this country, they don't get fucked with. Okay, I know that there's a long legacy of colonialism.
I think they would disagree with
stuff
that
happening in your country, but our black folks have sort of been through the fire, if you will, and they're not going to be fucked with. So you're the minority here. Enjoy. I really hope you like your time here. I'm going to bet my ass that you're going to be booking it back to SA probably within the next 12 months. Have a great day.
Yeah. You can tell the brain rot and the brainwashing that she has been fed for. I don't even think she's done any kind of research into who the people that actually are.
Well, the amount of hypocrisy in her statement.
And she's been taught to hate herself.
Yeah. And the amount of hypocrisy in her statement, how she'll treat one group of racial people different than another group of racial people. And she'll just say blatantly racist things. Then it's okay to say this to this group, but not to this group. And she's, like you said, self-hating, self-loathing. And those African people are hardworking farmers that this is why people come to America, because America gives you the opportunity to start your own business, start your own farm, to really have class mobility. And as long as you're willing to work hard, there's a chance that you are going to be you can set your own destiny and dictate your own future. A lot of other countries like Canada want to take 60, 70% in taxes. They give you back less of your own money than they're going to take and put in their own pockets. I think we had one more clip before we switch regions here. Maybe we should switch regions now just because I'm starting to go over time a little bit. So we'll go into the United States now. So far, we've talked about the Middle East, Trump's negotiations over in the Middle East, and the $600 billion deal he signed, as well as taking off tariffs and other trade barriers to Syria to help Syria kind of rise out of the situation they're in right now. Then we went into South Africa. Now we're going to go into the U.S. U.S. inflation drops to 2.3% lower than expected. Why don't you read a little bit of this article if you have it?
So annual inflation rate hit 2.3% in April, less than expected and lowest since 2021. The consumer price index rose a seasonally adjusted 0.2 for the month, putting the 12-month inflation rate at 2.3, its lowest since February 2021. Core CPI also increased 0.2 for the month, while the year-over-year level was 2.8. Egg prices tumbled, falling 12.7%, though they were still up by 49.3 from a year ago.
I mean, this is going better than I expected. This Trump tariff plan, I thought would work long term, but I didn't know if he was going to be able to handle the crunch. He's completely been able to manipulate the stock market in a good way. He puts a high tariff on, so it has a little bit of a crash, and then a couple of days later he takes it off, so it has the recovery. Rather than if he just announced a small tariff from the beginning, it would crash and it would never recover. So Trump is doing a good job implementing this, even on a short term. The short-term statistics are starting to come in. They're looking good. Inflation is coming down. Job numbers are coming up. He's implementing this tariff strategy on a good short, medium, and long-term basis. It's looking like people are coming for contracts. There's a lineup of countries. He's got the Saudi Arabia deal. He had the China deal yesterday. He had the UK deal the day before that. Sounds like Canada is in line for their deal. The one country that is talking tough right now, or set of countries, is the EU. And it's a shame that the EU is going to be dictating the terms of that tariff deal rather than the individual countries. But everything does seem to be coming together. Did we have a clip? Oh, no, you didn't have a clip of this. So I'll just talk about this really quick. And this was something that was... This was something that was close to my heart, and I kept talking about this, and I said, this is the best set of tax cuts he could do. A lot of people said he would never do this. This would never happen, just like the tariffs would never work, but they are working. What Trump promised is actually happening in a $4 trillion tax cut that will change everything. It will change the dynamic of the United States, much like the tariff is. He is reforming the United States back at its roots. This $4 trillion is going to go to every class of people, which is good to hear, but let's hear the class of people that I'm most excited for. So there will be no more tax on tips, no more tax on overtime, and no more tax on Social Security. So overtime really benefits people that work those blue collar jobs and are constantly working overtime, but they don't want to because it's so taxed. It's almost not worth to work that much overtime. I remember working in the film industry in Canada. You would make a big number on paper, but when you would actually get your check, there's so much money taken out of your overtime wage, it wasn't even worth working. But tax on tips, this affects a huge block of workers, restaurant workers, bar workers, everybody in the service industry. This is going to just absolutely change the paradigm of the United States. I remember I used to work as a server in California. I worked for minimum wage, but they have a special rule where they're able to take away your hourly wage down to $2 an hour based upon how much tips you make that hour. So you actually are almost working for free. $2 an hour. It's not a lot of money, and it seemed borderline illegal, but now the fact that there is going to be no tax on tips, this is a good thing. And finally, no tax on Social Security. This is huge. The Democrats implemented taxes on Social Security checks, which Social Security has already been taxed one time when it went into the savings account, and now it's getting taxed for a second time. This is going to affect old people around the country, boomers, things like this. So he's really affecting young people, young people with no tax on tips, middle-aged people, which are blue-collar workers, and old people with Social Security. So every segment of the population is going to feel this tax relief in a major, major way. This is going to be thousands of dollars back in these workers' pockets every month. On top of that, he is also going to have tax breaks for the wealthy and the rich, which this is where the Democrats kind of campaign on. But what they don't realize is a lot of times when you take off taxes on the rich, the money that they make is reinvested into new businesses, which create new jobs for your service industry, for your blue collar workers, and things like this. So it's going to be pump more money into the economy, especially when they're trying to bring manufacturing back to the U.S. economy. The best way to do this is to give tax relief to the people that are going to invest in these manufacturing businesses. So, Trump's strategy is really coming together amazingly well. Supposedly there's going to be $4 trillion in tax cuts, $1.5 trillion in spending reduction. This is why Doge was brought in. Doge is working. These Trump tax era cuts are permanent. It's going to be really hard, even if Trump loses the next election, to bring these taxes back. And the people now understand that they don't need to be taxed on their tips. They don't need to be taxed on their Social Security, and they don't need to be taxed on their overtime work, which if the Democrats come back in, they're going to try to refund what USAID Transgender Story Hour, and they're going to want to tax your tips. The general public will revolt on that. So these tax cuts are permanent, and because he found so much wasteful spending within USAID, that basically pays almost for this completely. You have anything on this? That was kind of the big story in U.S. Economics today.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people, and with the inflation and everything, they'll still complain. They'll still say that Trump isn't doing anything, that tariffs don't work, that the economy is going to get worse. But as the economy gets better, what's going to be their talking points?
Well, and it's really hard to have those talking points now because every trade deal he's come out of, he's been able to manipulate the other country into a massive windfall for the United States, whether that was the UK, China, or Saudi Arabia today. And he's got dozens and dozens of countries currently lined up, and some of his negotiated teams are currently in negotiations with countries like Canada and Mexico. So I think the liberal media is starting to understand these tariff negotiations are really benefiting the United States in big ways, and it's only the beginning. This is going to go on for well over a year. This will probably be a year and a half of negotiations with dozens and dozens of countries. And every time one of these negotiations comes to a conclusion, it looks like the stock market is going through the roof, just like it did with Saudi Arabia today and China yesterday or the day before on that news. Okay, let's go into some Canadian politics now and some Canadian news. So we got David Eby, I believe his name is. Eby believes U.S. doctors and nurses are going to jump at the opportunity to come back to BC for the following reasons, ignoring subsidies and high tax rates. I'll let him talk about this in just a minute, but this guy is literally lost in the sauce, has really eaten up this climate change, doesn't realize the world's changing before him. This is the reasons he's about to say U.S. doctors are going to come to the BC to work are the actual reasons BC doctors are going to leave to go work in the United States, and they have been for decades. Let's play this clip real quick.
Let me get
this. Is Canadian propaganda at its finest.
Driving increased interest in British Columbia that we're seeing include, we believe, our commitment and our support for science and the evidence that science directs us to around everything from healthcare to climate change.
Follow the science.
That we are a jurisdiction that respects reproductive rights and acts to protect reproductive rights for British Columbians. And that we take care of people regardless of how much money they have through our universal public healthcare system. So these are proud and competitive advantages for us, and it is driving interest.
It doesn't want to pause.
Oh, just play it. It's 3 seconds.
From American healthcare professionals. Some of the factors.
This is crazy to think American doctors who make a ton of money are going to come to British Columbia with socialized medicine where they're going to make a fraction of what they would. And he's promoting, how do I say this for YouTube? Getting rid of babies and the MAID program, which is medical assisted in dying, where it's basically, we'll have to talk about that on Rumble a little bit later, I guess.
Are you
but
MBLE?
All the reasons he's talking about is what makes Canada a shithole as far as their healthcare system goes. It's
completely broken.
We'll talk about it a little bit because you
the Canadian
used to live there.
How the Canadian healthcare system is completely broken, and they keep trying to say that it's the best one in the world because it's free. But yeah, it's free, and the cost is that you have to wait a bunch of time. You have to pay more in taxes, so it's not actually technically free. So David Eby is a premier of British Columbia. I don't know if you said that, but especially in Vancouver, where we lived, and also in British Columbia, the healthcare system is completely collapsed and has been for years.
Well,
even before COVID. Even before the bad times.
I live in Mexico right now, and the healthcare system here is 10 times better than what it is in Canada. And there's healthcare for different segments of society here. So one segment doesn't get overrun. Yes, richer people are going to get better healthcare here, but there is...
there's the ability to pay.
Yeah.
If you want to go see a doctor. In Canada, you can't.
You can't. You have to wait 3 to 4 years for a surgery. By the time
even if you have the money.
By the time you get in for that surgery, you are going to have so many add-on effects. You may have passed away by that time. We're talking 3 to 4 years for major surgeries. It is crazy. I didn't have a regular doctor. It's hard to find a regular doctor. I remember I went to paramedic school in BC specifically, which he's talking about, and there aren't enough paramedics. And they've passed legislation because the government can't even afford to pay paramedics. Basically, in your first couple of years, you have to work rurally, pay for your own gas money, 4 hours to a rural town where you get paid $2 an hour. That's illegal for every other career within Canada except for paramedics. It's absolutely insane, the healthcare system within Canada. Like I said, there are no doctors. The only way to get treatment within Canada is to go straight to the emergency room. And then you have to wait about 20 hours to see an emergency doctor in there.
Yeah. Either that or have enough money to go to the U.S. or go to Mexico or some other country.
Yeah. But there is a
you
ton of money for drug addicts and everything else in Canada.
For people with substance issues.
Yeah. So that's David Eby. That is the Canadian healthcare system. It's completely backwards. They completely need to revamp it. They aren't going to tackle that beast because there's so much corruption within that system on the rates they charge. They know the government's going to pay the bill, so they overcharge it. Things like this. Mm-hmm. Okay, let's talk about...
but if you take an ambulance, they actually charge you.
Oh, yeah. Hundreds of dollars.
Yes.
Hundreds of dollars. I made that mistake once. Okay, here's the current state. That was the Canadian healthcare system. Now, this is the Canadian auto industry. The Canadian government recently subsidized $52 billion into the EV industry because this is the future of Canada, although EVs don't work so well in cold weather. But I'm going to read off some of my notes here. The Honda plant the Honda plant, $15 billion EV plant, has been now postponed. The $7 billion PowerCo EV battery plant in St. Thomas postponed due to headwinds. The big one, Honda's 4 factories EV supply chain in Ottawa, canceled. The Northvolt battery factory bankrupt. GM Ingersoll laying off workers. Sorry, I couldn't say the name of that city so well. Stellantis halted production. Umicore, which is another battery factory, suspended. The Ford EcoPro canceled. This $54 billion is going up into the air and into politicians' pockets, much like they had the $1 billion subsidy for Canada to have its own satellite company like Starlink. Only that never materialized and all that money kind of disappeared. And now they're talking about they want a reinvestment of Canadian government money so they can launch satellites into space off of Starlink. Starlink offered them the ability to launch satellites into space a long time ago at 1/10 the cost, but they wanted to line politicians' pockets, and this is how they've been doing it. Off of these green scams, off these satellite scams, off these EV battery scams. Canada has just been disappearing money for decades now under the Trudeau administration, and now that Mark Carney's in office, he's trying to have this green agenda and this carbon tax where he can line his friends' pockets with dollars. You have anything here? We're just about done.
Well, I mean, it's just more ways to, I think, more ways to circumvent and find ways to move money around.
Yeah. And that's what Canada is all about, moving money around. The problem is it's coming to an end because it's on the verge of collapse. The Canadian economy we're at the point where the Titanic's going down and the Canadian politicians are filling their pockets with the silverware and looking for the life rafts. Okay, there was some serious funny business going on with the Canadian election right now. Do you remember the other day we reported that they recounted and the Liberals flipped a seat within Canada
in Terrebonne
by one vote? Did you hear what happened today?
No.
So today, somebody received their ballot back, and it was rejected because of the zip code on the envelope. Problem is, it was Elections Canada that printed these envelopes out. So this is the first one, I'm guessing, of many that are going to start coming about. But this would have meant this was a tie election. And if there's multiple ballots like this, here is the photo. This could be one of the many ways the Liberal Party was trying to rig this in Canada. There is a lot of things coming up about corruption in the recent Canadian election. So why don't you read a little bit of this?
So it says Liberals won Terrebonne, Quebec, writing by one vote, but this woman's block ballot wasn't counted. I wasn't the one who got Election Canada's address wrong on the envelope. She told Radio Canada, Elections Canada glued this label on the envelope. I had nothing to fill. I just had to put my vote in there.
Yeah, and I'm just going to keep up on this because I have a feeling there was a lot of interference in those Canadian elections. It's going to be very interesting to see what comes out over the next days and months. Well, thank you for tuning in. Hopefully you know a little bit more about the Middle East, South Africa, the United States economy, and what's going on in Canada as far as the healthcare system and their economic outlook, which isn't looking good. We'll see you tonight at 9:15 p.m., or that would be Central Time,
Mexico City,
on our main show. That's Nat and the Guy Live, or at 8 o'clock if you speak Spanish on our other channel. That's Nat and the Guy in Espanol.
Yes.
Okay, well,
Thank
that's it
you.
for today.
If you haven't liked or subscribed and you like and subscribe these live and you like and want to subscribe to these lives, please do so because we're also trying to grow this channel in English.
Yep.
Thank you.